Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. We appreciate you joining us. The Volunteers build a lead. Volunteers blow a lead. Volunteers have now lost their 5th straight. We will discuss hot seats, depth charts, a little bit of basketball. We got a full show for you today. 90 minutes of Vols talk. I will go ahead and warn you that it'll be a running gag today. My hearing is shot for the day. I've got a medical thing coming up this week. So if it looks like I'm just nodding at the guys as they talk, I am. I have no clue what they're saying. So let's get into it and see how this show goes. First segment brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. Locally owned businesses are the backbone of the Sports Source, always have been. And they're also the backbone for East Tennesseans. I'm from here. I know how we are. We turn to our own. You can do that when you need an attorney, too. Marcos Garza is a part of this community, a neighbor. He's not one of these out-of-town law firms that you see advertising everywhere. Call him and his team when you need an attorney. Garza Law Firm and GarzaLaw.com. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists for the day. We have from WNML AM and FM, Josh Ward. We have from WNML AM and FM, Jimmy Himes. And we have not from WNML AM and FM, Chuck Cavaleras. Chuck, of course, longtime sports writer, just Mr. Personality about town. And also, 2 of the last 3 games, you have nailed it with the Cavaleras line. I mean, within .5, you nailed it.
My phone's been blowing up with calls from Vegas, by the way. So they're checking with the casino.
When does the casino open its own app and you start seeing Jamie Foxx?
Hey, it's in the works, man. I got Pearl helping me. It's in the works, man.
All right. Babe! The Vols fall apart in the 3rd quarter yet again. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this means. Is the seat warming? Tennessee has now lost 5 games in a row for the first time since the 0-6 start in '88. Didn't even happen when they went 4-8 a few years ago. Wow. It's the first time in school history that they have lost 5 straight games by double digits. Now think about that. First time in school history that that's ever happened. Pruitt is now 15-17 at Tennessee. 14 of his 17 losses have been by double digits. And Georgia State would have been too if not for a garbage time TD. I've never seen anything like that. 14 out of your 17 losses are double digits. Ironically, Butch Jones was also 15-17 when he started out at Tennessee. He went 19-10 for the rest of his tenure, including they had an 11-game win streak after he was 15-17. Anybody here think Pruitt's about to go on an 11-game win streak?
No.
I don't either.
I'll not be predicting that.
Here's my question. It's year 3. Buying out Pruitt and his staff would cost $19.2 million, according to the Knoxville News Sentinel doing their numbers this week. We said a couple of weeks ago the money and the COVID situation is probably going to prevent Tennessee from buying them out. John Adams wrote that in the Sentinel today. But 5 straight losses by double digits. I expect a competitive game with Vanderbilt next week. That is not going to be a guaranteed victory. Mm-hmm. You throw in the fact that Will Muschamp got fired at South Carolina amidst all this COVID stuff. Has your view changed at all in terms of the danger that Jeremy Pruitt is in this season? Yay or nay?
I would say yay in just that what you said about the Vanderbilt game, of the importance of it. I know we'll talk about that, but the fact that we're having this conversation, what if it goes the wrong way? I can't sit here and close the door, especially when we're talking about Tennessee football, and say, hey, if you lose to Vanderbilt, and then you know what's coming with Florida and Texas A&M after that, where those would not just be losses, but likely devastating losses and what they could do against you, where the fans would be hoping the games get canceled. And I'm not saying that in a joking manner. How can I shut the door on anything right now?
Okay.
I think from the fans' perspective, it does change it. But John, I called a prominent booster early in the week, and I said, okay, if they lose to Vanderbilt, what happens? He said, they're not firing him under any circumstance. I said, why not? He said, finances. The difference is this. South Carolina's athletic department reserve is $30 to $40 million. Tennessee's reserve is $10.8 million, and that's a factor. So South Carolina's in better position financially to fire Muschamp than Tennessee would to fire Pruitt. That's why this booster told me it doesn't matter what happens to Vanderbilt, Pruitt's going to be the coach. Now, I've heard that kind of talk before, and then it swayed the other way based on results. I'm going to say probably not, just because of the numbers I mentioned.
The other thing that we've mentioned before is you go back through Tennessee history, you don't have a T. Boone Pickens who just strokes a check to fire somebody. All the way back to Buzz Peterson, where it was what, the buyout was $1 million, $1.5 million?
$1.4 million.
Yeah, and they still went in the red that year because no one just said, oh, I'll cover it. They make their donations, but they don't just cover your backside completely, at least not in the past, the boosters and donors haven't around here. So that's also a factor in this whole thing. So if you're sitting there saying, reserve fund, we don't care, Haslam can pick it up. That hasn't happened in the past. Chuck, has your thinking changed on the security of Jeremy Pruitt this season?
To tell you the truth, no, as we sit here today, but about the staff, I think you would be looking at some changes there. And guys, if you blow this up again, then you're looking at the $19 million, correct? Then you got a staff coming in, correct? So do you almost double that? Or, I mean, obviously we look back and wonder about the extension now. But no, as we sit here today, I do not see it impacting Jeremy Pruitt's status nearly as much as some of his assistant coaches.
Which extension raise are you talking about, Pruitt or Fulmer? One other thing, though, you mentioned, and I can't believe I heard this, but thank you for speaking up. The fact that you could blow up some assistants, that's going to be difficult, too, because just looking at Tennessee's history, Pruitt's facing a make-or-break year next year. Look at the guys that Tennessee has hired in that situation in the past, whether it was Butch Jones bringing in an offensive coordinator at the last minute that blew up in his face, or actually promoting an offense coordinator, whether it was Dooley bringing in Sal Sinceri. The pickings aren't good if you have to go down that road and try and get new assistants and try and bring in good people, but also you're throwing continuity right back out the window in what I think next year is a make-or-break season. I don't know. I agree with you that may happen. He's certainly been firing coaches left and right since he's been here, but I don't know that that's really a solution this year, like a lot of people seem to think it would be.
John, I think if you blow up staff, it's not going to be the coordinators. Now, that's typically where you look, but I don't know that you're going to get rid of Chaney as $1.6 million salary and Derek Ansley, who was brought in by Pruitt, and he's known him for a long time. If you do it, there might be a couple of assistants, maybe on offense or defense, that go. Jimmy Brumbaugh obviously is already gone. But if you blow up your staff, it might only be a couple, but I don't think it'll be coordinators.
Well, and you wonder what spots are going, because you look at a guy like Brian Niedermeyer, who they value as a recruiter. All right, he hadn't been an on-field coach. Then they give him tight ends. Now they've given him linebackers. Is he a tremendous on-field coach? Or would they value? I mean, maybe, but he's a great recruiter. Where is that? And we asked this when they got rid of Tracy Rocker last year, so this is not new.
Right.
But have they put too much emphasis on the recruiting ability of their staff as opposed to the coaching ability of their staff? And I'm not picking on Niedermeyer. You could make that guess about a lot of these guys.
I would say yes without question, because they also haven't gotten the recruiting results. They've done well in recruiting, but they always do well in recruiting at Tennessee. So the big name guys that they've gone after in recent months, Tennessee has fallen short because the on-field results have not been there. And I'm not saying they would have gotten Amarius Mims, maybe he still goes to Georgia. I'm not saying they definitely would have gotten Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, but wouldn't they have a better shot at some of these guys if they're playing better on the field? So in recruiting, they've done well. They're still about where they were before the coaching changes. They're almost identically where they were with Tracy Rocker and the other coaches.
Chuck, I'll let you close it out. Any other thoughts on this whole Pruitt situation? The fans, there's a sizable chunk of fans who are hitting that dangerous apathy zone.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I know that's for sure last night, just judging from the response. But it's just reaching the point, how badly do you need a win? Because you're going to go from 8-0, and if you can't beat Vanderbilt, to 0-8. And that's not good for anybody.
I want to close out just by showing a tweet that I got yesterday. I've gotten a couple of emails like this as well. I blacked the guy's name out. He might not want to be known, but tell me, Sports Source TV, it is time for your show to go wall to wall on firing Jeremy Pruitt and Philip Fulmer. How our boosters can make up the budget deficit and cover the buyouts and talk about a list of possible coaching candidates. Talking about anything else at this point is just pointless. Okay, and that's from a viewer for a long time. I appreciate him watching, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but I do think it's interesting. I thought it was just 3 years ago we were told that the vocal fans, Vol Twitter, had fixed everything. They shut up they got rid of the House of Haslam. They got rid of these boosters. No longer do they rule. And the mouthpieces, we the media. Now, all of a sudden, the media is who the UT's listening to, and you need the boosters to come back and write checks for the rescue? That's going to make an interesting book or two. I look forward to buying those and reading those. All right, when we come back, we'll get these guys' thoughts on the offense and defense. We'll talk a lot about, coming up, we'll talk a lot about the Harrison Bailey, Jarrett Guarantano situation, and more about the impact of a decision for that Vanderbilt game that could impact Jeremy Pruitt's future. Come on back on the Sports Source.